You're tuning in to Barski-Lyn Adventures. Welcome to our little corner of the bookish community. Hello, beautiful people of the bookish persuasion. Thank you so much for joining us today as we talk about reading, writing, and publishing. I'm C.H. Lynn, and this is my fantabulous co-host.
It's not a word. I'm Tracy Barski.
It's fantastic and fabulous combined, and it for sure is a word right now. You smarty pants.
Tracy Barski.
Tracy Barski is an editor and proofreader, for those curious. So if you write fantabulous in your work, she will redline right through.
I will absolutely do that. I allow a
you
lot
wouldn't,
of things.
though.
No. I allow a lot of things in speech, but I will not allow anything
in writing. Nothing is allowed
unless
to be
it's
written.
Appropriate for the character, of course. I know.
That's why you don't mind all the cursing in Lacey Goes to Tokyo.
Yes.
All right. We're here today. Oh, sorry. I'm doing the intro wrong. We're readers, writers, mothers, and wives. And we're here today, episode 3 of the podcast, and we're going to talk about the next step in the process. So last episode, we talked about plotting versus pantsing in terms of writing a story. And now we're going to talk about what you do when your manuscript is written.
Complete.
Turns out. Which, obviously, this is sort of, again, a real loose, overarching little mini series of episodes for our first few episodes of like step 1, step 2, step 3. And obviously it's more complicated than that, and there's more to it, and we'll get into
it's very easy.
it's so
That's
easy.
That's why everybody does
Everybody writes books because it's the easiest thing. Publishing, even easier. Also, both of us are on the tail end of not on the tail end, we're recovering from having been sick previously. So I will attempt to edit out coughs, but if it doesn't happen, then
I apologize for that. Sorry for that.
I have a very interesting way of breathing right now where it's really loud. Which, oddly enough, editing this, I already feel like I breathe really loudly. Just editing the last 2 episodes, I'm like, you can tell that I am not a robot. Because I am breathing oxygen.
You're welcome, world. She's not a robot.
Not a robot.
She's been vetted.
Anyway, so...
Me, however...
Yeah, you are...
Jury is still out.
Terminator.
Yes.
Height. Terminator height.
Sure. Not musculature, that's for sure. But I could
You're pretty strong.
I am very strong. I was going to say I could probably kick your butt in a fight.
Yeah. This is difficult because I don't want to be mean, but also I'm very scrappy.
I believe that.
I think you and
I would not say that I would just take you out immediately.
Oh,
I'm
that's
just
fair.
saying I would probably win.
It would be a long, drawn out, 3 months later, still going at anyway. So, folks, we're talking today about what to do when that manuscript is finished. And, you're good. I say finished, and I mean you're done writing and you think it's ready to publish.
It's not.
Yeah, specifying the you think, because that was what I thought. I finished Hope and Lies and I was like, cool, I'll have a couple people read it, and if they find errors, then maybe I'll hire somebody to edit it. They found a lot of errors, you guys. That's what happens.
I mean, that's a fair point because I didn't plan to publish my first book, but I felt good enough about it that I kind of asked the question, and I had 2 friends read it. One who is a bookish person, and she was like, I would not recommend publishing it. And she was right.
Wasn't ready.
And, well, I wasn't ready as an author. I think what I needed to do was open myself up to more people reading, getting eyes and feedback on it, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have changed a lot of the things that I did that made the book and myself as a writer so much better.
Okay. Yeah, you utilize beta readers.
I had the number of eyes I had on that manuscript was a lot. I probably can't even.
This is the
remember.
Alternate end.
Yes, alternate end. And they were all people I know initially, and then I joined a beta reader critique
partner
group.
Yeah.
And had some people from there. read through it and give me I had that one really nitpicky reader, which turned out was really good for me in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't matter how good of a writer you are.
Yeah.
That first draft is not ready to publish.
And neither's the second or third. The drafts that you've written and read, if your eyes are the only eyes on your work is not ready to release to the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think we're going to get some comments of people who disagree.
Sure.
Which is fine. Disagree all you want. But yeah, so
this is me speaking as a fiction book editor. I have also done nonfiction. Yeah. But I'm saying me writing my book and then reading through it, cleaning it up in that way, it was not ready for the world. So I will tell you right now, no. And I don't care if you disagree with me.
You heard it here first, folks. The answer is
because I would also say,
no.
Yes.
I love it.
I would also say you need eyes on it before you even send it to an actual editor.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So just a real quick little rundown. So Tracy, a professional proofreader, editor, this is how you make your money. Yes. This is your job.
Yes.
You've proofread so many of my books.
Yes.
Even you, with your writing, let's take Love Undercover, for example,
yep.
which just released.
Yep.
Congratulations.
Yep.
Very exciting. Yep. With Love Undercover, you wrote it, you read it, you edited it, and, I mean, for the layman, that sounds like it's done. You're a professional editor.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had our little writer group read it. You had several other beta readers read it. You were making tweaks along the way as people were giving you feedback.
Mm-hmm.
There were a few scenes that, some plot holey stuff that got fixed because you don't see it's like when you're driving and you're looking too far ahead, you do not see your own plot holes.
Uh-huh.
And you will not catch every single one of them. Yeah. So having additional eyes, even for someone like you who is a professional.
7 people.
7 people. And not a single one of them was doing an edit or a proofread.
Correct.
All of us were and I was one of them. Hello. All of us were doing essentially a beta / critique read of helping, I guess not helping develop, but pointing out any places or moments or things where it's like, you might want to, what if you did it this way? Because that will make more sense later on when you have this other scene and stuff like that the author just fully will not consider because it's written how we write it. And that's...
And I recommend these kinds of readers because it will save you money, A of all. An editor is really great. A developmental editor will catch a lot of those things if they're good, but there's also so much less work for them if you have someone who has the authority to speak about it. You know, I had writers as well as just readers reading mine. So that gives you 2 really different perspectives. Sometimes writers get a little too critical and are asking questions that the reader's supposed to ask. And they're like, no, you need to be clear about this. And you're like, well, let's see what the actual readers do. So mine were...
Read another 3 pages. You will get that answer. And the buildup is important.
Yes. And so it's great to have those 2 kinds of perspectives. You don't always have to have 7 people read through. That's just what I did because I had...
well, and you don't have a developmental editor or a proofreader.
Correct.
You are that person for yourself. So I'd say a 7 is probably a good total.
Yes, especially for me because I don't pay somebody to developmentally edit my stuff.
Well, I'm saying even for the layman, 7 is a good number. You have a couple people, you have maybe one critique partner.
I think you need 1 to 2 critique partners who are really gonna critique it, and that's, you gotta find people who are not gonna pussyfoot around.
And you gotta be able to take the punches, roll with the swings. That's not how it goes. You know what I mean?
It's take their feedback very seriously, but not personally.
Yes, that's such a good way of putting it.
Because they're not saying you're dumb. They're not saying your story's bad. They are literally making it better.
I want a sticker that says, I take feedback seriously, not personally.
Yes. But it also I also say this, take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really important, every piece of feedback, you think on it. And if it doesn't work for what you are trying to do, it is okay. You have the authority to be like, nah, I'm not going to take that.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to make this really clear to people that it's important that if somebody pointed it out, you have to really seriously consider it.
Yeah, because one person looking at it that's another 100 people are going to notice that thing.
Yeah, they represent a percentage of your readers. So take it seriously, not personally. Don't defend yourself. They don't care why you did it.
Yeah. This goes for edits too. When you're getting feedback from developmental, even line editors.
Yes.
Like,
but you also, I will also say that critique partner should also be somebody who's encouraging you too.
Yeah, the critique and betas are, I think, the two places where you do sort of want people who are going to, again, be very serious and dedicated and methodical, also are going to cheerlead you. Yes. By the time you get to editors and proofreaders, you don't need cheerleading. You need the book to be done.
Yes.
You need
it cleaned up.
Yeah, you don't need people commenting, this was such a great scene, blah, 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 blah. But,
it's nice if they do.
Yeah.
As an editor.
But if you're getting paid, if you're paying someone to edit and their time is going into it, they're not going to take the time to compliment you. That's like hiring a personal trainer who's going to, take the first 10 minutes of the workout to walk around and be like, your hair looks fantastic. Right. Like, that's not why I hired you.
I think it's great. And most editors will give you some of that positive feedback for sure.
Bits and pieces for sure.
When I'm doing a professional edit, I generally just focus on fixing the things.
Yeah.
But I will, if something really sticks out to me, I will comment and be like, that was good. I really like this line or whatever it is. Because I know even as that's the last step, we still need a little bit of an ego stroke because we're getting nervous. We're that close to
not even an ego stroke, fully just like a reassurance that yes, you're 7 people in to having read this manuscript. This many people have read it. You are still on the right page. You're still on the right track. It's still good.
Yeah.
Because at that point, the author has also read the book 20 times.
At least.
And is hitting that. I mean, for me personally, by the time I get to a proofreader, I'm done. I don't want to read my book anymore. I don't want to look at it. I want it to go away for a little while. So I usually, depending on the time frame of release day, will finish all the edits and everything, let it sit, send it off to a proofreader, and then let it sit and not look at it for a bit, which hasn't worked out the last 2 books because I've wanted to put them out immediately. Yeah. So as you're proofreading them, I'm going through deleting all of the commas. That's my number one thing on proofreads is like, Cheyenne, you have so many commas.
I'm the comma killer.
You're the comma killer. That's such a great name.
My brother also calls me the rogue grammarian.
Oh, I like it.
Because I originally was going to school to be an editor. It's a skill set I have. I wanted the degree to back my skill set up.
Yeah. I
ended up pursuing a different degree in college, and became an editor anyway, because I just freaking know what I'm doing.
Well, and I mean, I could be wrong about this, and I don't know this actually, so let me ask you, did you get into the editing proofreading after Cassidy came out and you sort of joined that community, or were you doing edits?
I was doing professional edits before I published.
Oh, okay.
Not as many, but once I published and I had people reading my book and I was like, I edited my own book. They were like, oh, because that's actually really, I've had a number of people say how clean my books are.
Well, we're indie authors.
Yes.
And as true as it is that it's hit or miss on traditional publishing as well, it is also very true that a high percentage of indie authors do not have the finances to get professional edits or proofreads.
Yes. If you're going to do one or the other, if you're really good about your critique partners and your beta readers, I would say pay for the proofread 100%.
Yeah, and
because you do not, you're blind, first of all. Second of all, That's what readers really notice. If you've got typos, like there's some things most people don't know how to properly use a comma, so they kind of gloss over that.
They don't care.
Nobody cares that I'm that nitpicky about commas, but I will be that nitpicky with commas because I believe in appropriate punctuation.
But readers do know about dialogue tags, and they do know when you spell the character's name. In Hope and Lies, this is going to be a deep dive. This is going to be a deep dive discussion at a later date, talking about the struggle that I had with Hope and Lies. But Hope and Lies, I had the wrong name. It was Naya and Nova, and I put the wrong name in one of the spots, and LJ actually caught it.
Yeah.
When she did a
There
read.
was another name.
It happened like twice.
This is the thing too.
There's a lot of characters in the
brain,
book.
As an editor, I will read something chapters before, and it's like a one-off mention of something, and then that thing pops up later, and if it's not the same, like I can just tell.
Yeah, it's hazel to green eyes, and for so many readers,
there was something else I remember. I was like, wait a second.
No, it was
somebody else's name or something.
It was Jimmy. So it was Anthony's little cousin, and I called him his nephew.
Yes,
in one spot in the whole book, and nobody else had caught it. My editor hadn't caught it. My original proofreader hadn't caught it, and none of the people who had read the book, which at this point, because Tracy did her proofread of it like 6 months in, at that point, maybe 100 people had read it. Not one of them reached out to me being like, hey, and I'm sure some of them noticed it and were like, oh, she messed it up. But anyway, so having a proofreader, somebody who has not, and this is important, has not seen your manuscript.
Yes. Yes. They need to have the freshest eyes because you're blind to it. And even as a proofreader, I think that's generally why when you send it to me, you don't have me critique your stuff. I usually do. Like she writes her books are usually really clean as far as plot and all of that stuff because of the way that she outlines.
Because of previous episode?
Yes. But so I still do, because when I proofread, and most proofreaders will do this, they'll do some line edits too, where like this sentence, the structure is wonky.
Yeah, if something catches your attention,
or maybe that's just me. I do that because I'm like, this is awkward and clunky and whatever else. And some developmental editors, I don't know, maybe, because I did a proofread of somebody's book in September, I think. She had a developmental editor. And I was still killing those commas. And she's like, I just feel like she would have caught all these commas. I was like, it's a totally different mindset when you're looking at story plot and
yes. So I want
arcs and all of those things.
Yeah, I want to real quick cut you off.
Yes.
Because we're almost 20 minutes in and have not described the difference between the different types of editors.
Sure.
So let's start at the top. Critique partners are usually other authors or people in the writing industry who read your manuscript at any point.
Yes.
So Tracy doesn't necessarily read my manuscript, but I will sit and give you a plot, like a hit by hit, scene by scene. We're having coffee, and I'm like, this is the story. And I'm essentially telling her the plot of a movie. And
half the time, it's just that she needs to verbally process it. I don't have to give a lot of input. But I can, and that's helpful.
And if I have, and this is where the critique bit comes in, is if I, part of having somebody who's so good at listening the way you are, is when I am doing that, if you have a tendency to catch something, like you said, of something that was mentioned at the very beginning of like, I'm going to open the story with this scene, and then 30 minutes later I'll be like, and then we're going to have this scene, and you'll be like, you just had that scene that was the first scene that you had in the entire story, and I'll be like, look at that, okay, and have to go. And so that's one kind of critique partner. Another critique partner would be like my mom, who when I finish a chapter and I really like, I'll just send her a chapter, and she has a vague idea of what's going on. She hasn't read the manuscript yet. And then there's critique partners where you're done. Again, you've finished the book. You've maybe done some rough edits. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you've just done the first draft.
I generally recommend finishing your first draft and then doing a read-through / basic self-edit. because you will catch a lot of stuff and then you're saving everybody time.
Yeah. Well, and we say first draft because that's the way you and I write. So many people, there's so many different ways of writing, right? Some people start at the top and write as far as they can get, and then they go back and they edit all of that, and then they keep writing.
Yeah.
And
so if you do that, I still feel like once
you should
finish,
still do a
you
read
need
through.
to read through from beginning to end to really get the flow.
Agreed.
So that's what I would like. Generally, when I talk to people about the process, like you have your finished book, what do you do now? Let it breathe for a minute.
Yep.
At least a week. I usually only wait a week because I am not a very patient person.
Depends on how many projects we have going, because if you've got 3 different projects, then you can let it wait a month while you work on a different project.
That's very true.
Which is what you did with Love Undercover.
That is very true.
And
that's also because I finished Love Undercover and I thought it was a pile of crap.
Well, I read
it wasn't, guys, but it wasn't. I thought it was.
But so it wasn't, obviously, but it is now so much better than it was. And I read not the first draft, because Tracy doesn't let anyone read first drafts.
Correct.
But I read the first version you were comfortable with other eyes being on, and it was really good. And there were there were things that... Girl,
it's fine.
I liked it. And then you had your critique partner. You had your critique partners and everything, and you were able to... make those adjustments after. Oh, that was it. It was Nano. So she wrote Love Undercover, and then Nano hit, and you wrote a completely different book.
And then we wrote Love is Murder.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so you had like 3 months between.
And I was still, I was pretty much at the end of the last couple of read-throughs of Cassidy 3 as well.
It was a busy year last year, y'all.
I was doing a lot of things. I finished Love Undercover the end of summer, like the end of July.
Right.
And she and I had sort of started drafting Love is Murder in July, but really hit it hard in August and literally wrote it in just a few weeks.
Yeah.
And I was also doing my final sweeps and cleanups of my third in my series. Because Cassidy was releasing September 1st.
All of fall blends into one. Honestly, fall through Christmas.
5,000 things at once.
Because we also had the book bash December 1st.
And you were finishing up.
I released Damon, Truth and Fury. Published Song of the Deep in long form, because you had done the cover for it. Yeah, it published. Released. No, Song of the Deep released.
Oh, I did
last year,
and that's something too. I don't remember because I was doing things for those books as well. I proofread Truth and Fury and Damon.
Damon and Spooky Cat came out in January.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I wasn't proofreading Damon until a little bit later. I was also... So this is what our life looks like.
We fully jumped tracks.
But all... Here, okay. So, edits. Okay. This is what I recommend for your process. You finish your draft, read through from beginning to end once, just to catch the flow and all of that stuff.
And if you have big changes to make a note. Don't make those changes while you're doing that first read through.
Correct. Once you finish reading the whole thing, then you go back
and make whatever those big changes are. Little things, obviously, like punctuation and stuff. Do what you're gonna do.
Yeah, do what you gotta do.
If you have to rewrite a chapter, don't do that, because it will interrupt the flow. Then you send it to beta readers.
Critique partners.
That's what I meant.
Critique partners. 1 or 2 is my recommendation. I technically had 3 for Love Undercover at the same time, but one of them, she was kind of a beta reader more than a critique partner. You and LJ were my critique people for that sweep. I had 2 other critique readers go through though, before I sent, or simultaneously.
You had a critique partner doing it while you were doing like final.
That is true too. And actually I think I had Danielle and Meredith reading like right after you guys read it.
Those 2 almost count as critique partners.
Meredith particularly. Yeah. Meredith they're my like...
Shout out. Thanks. We love you both.
They are...
And the previously mentioned critique partners.
Hardcore fans of mine. Danielle was my friend first, but she is a voracious reader, insane reader. She and her mom became a fan of mine because she read my first book. And they're like diehard, like send me anything you ever write and need. eyes on. So, and Meredith is fantastic at catching things, and she gave me some rewrite ideas for Love Undercover. So, you have your first read through, send it to your critique people. You can be reading and working on some of that stuff while they're reading, which is what I tend to do just because of time. Mm-hmm. And then I can discuss,
like releasing books quickly.
Sometimes you need to kind of go back and forth about ideas of how to fix certain things. So I would say don't just let them go all the way through necessarily. It depends on your critique readers. I had one who she would much prefer going through the entire thing before I look at it. I like to go kind of simultaneously. And like I said, we can discuss some of the things. Some of the things I can just be like, no, or yeah, I really agree with that. Or I'd be like, I need some help.
And this real quick goes back to your point that you made a little bit ago, which was you don't need to explain yourself. You do not need to defend your writing.
Right.
The back and forth is someone says, I felt like this scene didn't work. And you say, why? And then they give you an explanation. You're like, oh, okay.
And if you have good, like Cheyenne and I, she is one of my most trusted writer friends because she can see the story the way that I can see it. So when I have an issue with some sort of plot thing, if she's like, this doesn't work, I can be like, okay, tell me what you think might help, or like, can you help me brainstorm how to fix this, that kind of thing. So I love having her on my team of critique readers because she's great at that.
It's also one of my favorite things about you is we can sit there and talk about each other's works in terms of like giving each other a list of ideas. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to feel any kind of way about it if you're like, I don't like any of those. I'll be like, cool, you figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
So you just narrowed it down. And you just got rid of this list. Even if it's
not her suggestion or idea, if I come up with something on my own, I could be like, hey, what about this? And then she can be like, I think that works. Yeah. Or it's not quite. Or
what if you did that and tweaked it?
Yeah. So that's a really important element of the critique reading process. So I don't think that you should just leave it for them and then come back later, because they don't know your story to the depth that you do, and they might forget a lot of those things
as
if you go back at the end.
Yeah, and it depends on how quickly they're reading.
Yes. But your beta readers, I would say those you send off and leave it to them. But so you do your critique read partners and fix whatever things they might have suggested. And probably that would usually entail a whole another read through on your part. Mm-hmm. Maybe more than one.
Then beta, which is
send them to your betas,
which is another read through after that. And you're reading through. You're looking at the comments as you're reading through. We're not being like, go check every single comment and then read through your book. Yeah. So read through your book and look at the comments as you go. Mm-hmm. And then after beta, so here's the rundown of what different editors are and what they do. Starting chunky. Developmental editors.
Yes. So they are the ones who are looking at your story as a whole. They will catch major plot holes. They will look at your character arcs. They will look at the story from beginning to end. So their job is not to catch all of your typos. Like, it's nice that they do. I can't turn that part of my brain off, so I still catch all of that stuff, but not to the degree that I do when it's just a proofread. So that's your developmental editor. That it's all in the word. They're developing your story.
Yes. So, and a lot of authors, like you, for example, mm-hmm. and me, for most of my things, mm-hmm. don't use developmental editors.
Yes.
It depends on how confident you are with your book. It depends on what feedback you got from your betas and your critique partners. If you have good enough betas and critique partners, you don't need a developmental editor.
Correct.
Because you've developed it with those people.
Yes.
Also, if you have... They have to be trusted, right? That's a huge thing. Mm-hmm. Like, I trust Thea to the end of the world to tell me if Miss Bell's Travel Guides is going a direction that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because she's so invested in the story.
Yeah.
I do have a developmental editor for the Abradia series. That's my mom.
Yeah.
And she, in Hope and Lies, cut maybe 20,000 words.
Yeah.
Just being
that's another benefit. They can be like, this is not necessary. And mm-hmm. that's a really important element too, because I have read books that they are like,
they drag.
Well, and they're like, I had an editor and I was like, did you pay them because they didn't do their job? Because it's not just the overarching story that is important with an editor with that. And this is where it gets a little murky between a proofreader / a line editor. Redundancy in language.
Yep.
Over explaining, like
same sentence structure on repeat.
Yeah. Overused words,
huge paragraphs,
that kind of thing.
Nonstop.
A developmental editor may or may not pick up those things.
Yeah, it depends on who you have. It depends on who you're working with.
And that's something you can talk to your editor about. And that's something you need to pay attention to as well, because not everyone is as good with English, grammar, structure, all of that stuff. And that does not make you a bad writer. That's some people just have skills in those areas. And that is one area I do have a skill set. And so, but if you don't necessarily know that your editor is or is not getting those things.
Yes.
But that's something when you go into an edit with a developmental editor, make it very clear your expectations and or what they know they're going to do. Yeah. Are they going to look at the line level like that with repetitive words, redundancy, which is this, I just was redundant, or just like filler words or over explaining or whatever those things are.
As with everything else, have a conversation with the person that you are paying to do the job.
Yes.
Make sure that you're both on the same page. We need to get through the rest of the kinds of edits, and we will deep dive into this as well on a different episode.
I was planning to do a quick, because that was just a thing to differentiate. Yes. Because developmental editors may or may not do those things, and that's where you have to find out. But a proofreader oftentimes also has some level of line edits, and at least I always do.
So after developmental, we get line/content editors, and both words are used, which was confusing to me at the start because content feels like developmental. It's not. It's line edits. Yeah, line editors are supposed to catch all of the
sentence structure. Yeah, the redundancy, all of those things.
Grammatical errors.
Yes.
Misspelled words, the wrong name thing.
Homophones, homonyms. I catch those all the time.
Catch us in the epilogue to find out what both of those words mean. And then so that's the next step. And then proofreader, again, that's sort of that last thing where
they will make sure that you have no weird spaces, that you have the correct punctuation. They'll catch typos. They'll fix spelling. But a lot of times you don't really need, well, and that's where you have to ask again, like with your proofreader, I do that. I do content editing while I'm proofreading because they kind of go hand in hand. Well, and I'm reading things at that technical level. And so when I'm reading through a sentence and I'm like, well, there should be a comma here or whatever. I'm like, the sentence is just freaking awkward and we could simplify the whole thing, but I will still catch repetitive words because my brain works that way. I catch repetitive words. I catch, convoluted sentences, sentences that just they're clunky, or the order of the words can be weird.
Yeah. So this goes back to have a conversation. Have a conversation with the person that you're having. Yes. We do need to wrap up this episode. I want to do
then you're done. The proofread should be your last thing before
your last thing before you're working on exterior things.
Right. Formatting and the cover.
Quick shout out, Danielle is on Instagram at DANIS_read with a Z at the end.
Like reads.
So go check her out because she reads a ton and has really good recommendations and has really good takes on books.
Yes, and she's starting her Bookstagram.
She's brand new. There's 26 followers on there right now, so it'll be interesting to see how many there are when this episode releases.
Yes.
Because she's pretty awesome.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
Folks, that is where we're going to call it for episode 3 of Barski-Lyn Adventures. So exciting. Make sure you head over to the epilogue on our Patreon. We're going to continue talking about this. We won't do the super hardcore deep dive into each level of editing specifically because we want to save that for the main feed, but we are going to continue the conversation about how to get the interior of your book where it needs to be before you start working on the rest of it, which will hopefully be the next episode of how to do the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, what?
You gonna tell them to tell us we're pretty?
Oh, yeah. I forgot.
It's been a long, you guys.
We were sick.
Yeah.
I was dying for
Tracy died for 2.5 weeks. We did not record for a full month.
Yep. So tell us we're pretty.
And have a beautiful rest of your day, folks. Thank you so much for tuning in. For more and to check out our after show, The Epilogue, head over to patreon.com/Barski-Lyn Adventures. We'll see you next time.